Welcome to another video of Education System Reboot. Today, I actually wanted to talk about a concept that I hope is relevant to all classes. And it's the idea of well, you can see it on the screen, practice priority flow chart. So my first thing is I'm going to explain what this is in musical terms, and then I'm going to kind of hopefully explain how this is usable in other terms. And maybe this gives ideas of, curriculum development, I don't know, anything like that. But the point being, sorry, I was going to make it a little bigger. There we go. Is that I think this idea of the best way to describe it is introduce a skill, create a routine to maintain it, right? So it's develop a skill, maintain the skill, develop the skill, maintain the skill. And through conversations, I should also say my oldest son is in second grade, and I've asked him questions about what they do in second grade. And again, he's not maybe the most reliable person to describe what's going on, but my gut tells me that, especially in elementary school, routines and the maintaining of skills is not a high priority. It's trying to get through everything. So anyway, I hope by the end of this video, you'll have a sense of kind of what you're seeing in front of you, what it means and how it works, and possibly how you could apply it to whatever your subject area is. All right, so a little background. This flow chart represents an hour of practicing, okay? And so hopefully what you're gonna see is I'm gonna kind of take you through the steps of learning an instrument. So as a horn teacher, let's say I get a new student. And so the first thing I'm gonna teach them are just some beginning skills, right? I'm gonna try to build some basic skills, and that's what this line represents. And so if, and this doesn't have to be an hour practicing, it could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, it could be a full day, but I'm just using the hour because I think it simplifies it. So theoretically, every day they practice whatever skills I've introduced. Let's assume I introduced 6 specific skills, and they should spend approximately 10 minutes on each skill. Okay, so I'm hoping that makes sense. And then what would happen is through the development of these skills, eventually what you would do is you'd place those skills into a routine. And in musical terms, I call these playing fundamentals, right? But you could think of just fundamentals of your subject, fundamentals, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic, the fundamentals, okay? And once they've created a routine, you notice that they're not going to spend the whole hour on that stuff because they've gotten better at it. They're going to need to spend about 30 minutes on that routine. And then I introduce new things. So in musical terms, scales are, hopefully if you have any experience in music, you know what scales are. I like to categorize those as theory fundamentals, okay? And so bottom line is after they've worked on this level and they move to this level, this is where routines come into play, right? We develop the skills of the routine, and now they've got a routine which helps them maintain the skills, right? Introduce the concept, maintain it. Introduce, learn the skill, practice the skill, now maintain it. Now in music, this never changes. I have a phrase that says the music will always change. The skills needed to play the music never change. So to me, that's the important part here. That's why routines are so important. All right, and then you introduce some music and etudes. Now, as we go from level to level, you'll notice, so what I'm recommending, or what I think naturally happens, is they get better at their routine and they're able to get through it quicker. So they free up more time. Same thing maybe with the scales, right? So now there's this extra amount of time they can practice for new skills. And then obviously as they're growing, the music they're working on is hopefully appropriate for their level too. So at this point, I hope everything's making sense. Then what tends to happen is they reach a plateau, maybe that's the right word to say, where their routine no longer it needs to grow with them. So that's when I have this thing called expanding the routine. And so basically it's taking these same things and making them harder, right? And I won't explain in depth the musical part, but I hope this makes sense. So we've gone from a routine where they're getting maintenance to where now they've got to grow a little bit more. But usually my experience is it still takes about the same amount of time. So the skip from this level to this level isn't really a giant, you don't have to add a lot more time, at least that's my experience. And then finally, and this is, so you could almost assume, like I'm gonna use this is the 5th grade band level or 4th, 6th grade band level, wherever you start. This maybe is middle school, this maybe could be high school, this could be college, and this could be professional. So the point is this right here kind of represents how I view my practicing. I have a very expansive routine. Now, mine takes longer than 10 minutes because I'm a professional musician, but the concept is the same. And then I have the same thing. I have expanded efficient routine for scales. Other skills that we've introduced at some point, I find ways to maintain them. There's a thing called lip trills on the French horn. Those are specialty skills. I don't have to necessarily practice them every day, but I need to maintain them. And then I try to make room for these things. So in essence, if I get in the habit of practicing an hour every day, right? And I kind of follow this format of going from beginning skills to developing routines to improving the routines more efficiently, where I can add new skills. Then I make my routine harder so it expands with me. And then I make that more efficient. I hope that makes sense. So this is kind of my flow chart of practice priority in music. Okay, so now, how does this pertain to any other class? Well, I think if you can understand the logic and the flow of what you saw here, it can translate to any other subject. Now, I did a math one just because I feel like I understand math enough to kind of give a rough outline. So here is it. So it's the same. You'll see a similar format. Okay. So you start with the basic skills, right? And I just kind of, also let me just point out, there's probably some spell check problems in here. This doesn't actually use the spell check. So if you see something, please forgive me. I'm not an English teacher. But the bottom line is you would start with beginning basic skills, right? And I just kind of think of what would they be? A math teacher, forgive me, math teachers. But then what I would advocate is, all right, so all of these skills, you would want to create a daily routine within your class where they are covering all these things. And then you have a period of time where you would introduce these skills, but make them more advancing, right? And then perhaps you introduce new skills like geometry, et cetera. Now, keep in mind, this could be within a class, like the daily class routine, or this just could be your long-term goals, right? So your first goal is just make sure they understand these 6. Then the next goal would be, all right, to make sure you have some sort of routine here that reinforces this, and then you add some new skills. And once you've done that, you say, all right, now we're going to move to the next subject within math, right? Geometry. And then I hope you'll notice the same thing happens. As they get better at this, you still would do a routine that kind of does all these. Then you would create a new routine that reinforces or maintains the geometry, that you taught. And then you might start introducing the new concept, right? Algebra, perhaps. And if you kind of follow, and I'm gonna try to go through all the way through this. So you do the same thing here. You do higher level basic skills, but they're more, you're adding thousands and millions and doing, things like that. But you never stop maintaining. And this is the key to this video and why I'm doing this video is I think what happens for most subject areas is we do a good job of teaching within like little units. Like we really think those out, but then the unit's done and we don't maintain it. We don't develop habits within our students that allow them to maintain this. And then we wonder why they say, well, I'm never going to use this, right? It has to be something that they have developed the ability to do. Now, side note, as you're developing these routines, especially if you've had kids that are struggling a little bit, the beautiful thing is by having a daily routine, everybody's getting an opportunity to practice, right? And if you follow my logic here, as students practice, they begin to believe in themselves more, right? So this constant coming back and reviewing or maintenance, whatever you call it, allows for the kids that maybe struggled a little bit here to keep having opportunities to get better, right? And this goes back to effort matters, right? Consistent effort over time equals success. Another thing, again, habit first, quality second. Again, everything about this is about habit building, okay? So I was on this level. So now you can kind of see, so this would be a routine that you somehow, and it's up to you to develop, that kind of incorporates both the basics and maybe geometry. So now it's a new level of routine that keeps maintaining these skills. And then you have the ability to move algebra into a routine, like you create algebra routines, and then you start adding new concepts. Anyway, I realize that most of the math classes are kind of set up this way, right? They're set up in logical sequences from grade level, et cetera. But the difference in what I'm explaining is the maintenance of routines, right? So if we want to take anything out of this video, it's that are our daily routines within our classes allowing students the consistency to maintain whatever skills they developed way back here. And I think we can all agree that if you don't use it, you lose it, right? I mean, I'm the poster child for that. Once I got out of high school, I didn't really use math except for the basic stuff, and the day-to-day stuff. But and I got all the way to pre-calculus, and I mean, math was really easy for me up until that point. So like, I had the skill to do it. I just didn't have a routine, a habit that allowed me to maintain it. And so again, I think big picture, I'm referring to how we fix or reboot the education system is we keep hyper focusing on routine. Now, I was going to do one for elementary school, but then I realized I'm just not an expert per se. So I am going to kind of talk through this a little bit, but I decided not to kind of, try to pretend like I knew what I was talking about in the elementary circles. But so what I've just kind of done here is time blocking, right? And the idea is, I think elementary school students go to school for about 6 hours, right? Or they have about 6 hours of instruction time, give or take, maybe a little less, I don't know. And 60 minutes doesn't have to be, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 40 minutes. But the idea is, these are, in my opinion, kind of the 6 big rocks of education. Okay. Now, I didn't put music in there, even though I'm biased. I think music should be on here too, but I'm just trying to make this clear. Now, this one I think is the one that I would hyper focus on a little bit more personally, but because I think this is the key to long-term success across the board. So the question I have to any elementary school teachers that see this is, do you have routines and habits and structures and processes in place that truly teach organizational habits or just habits in general? And as I was thinking about it, it's like, okay, so what would be the first thing? Well, maybe the very first thing they do every day is organize their space, right? That would be a great habit to get into. And then that can snowball after a while into, all right, now let's keep organizing our space because we built that habit, but let's add a calendar. Let's start organizing our life with a calendar, maybe, that's another example. Or maybe it's organizing binders. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. But the idea is start with one habit in each of these categories and make that the habit they develop, right? Just like, I'm going to go back to right here, just like that beginning skill, right? We do a beginning skill first, whatever that is, and then we continue through on that and develop better habits, right? Because habits and systems will grow with the student as they get better. But eventually, let me just put this, my goal, and maybe I should type this in, is to have a daily morning routine, okay? That would be the goal, in my opinion. Again, take it, leave it, whatever. But if students have a way to organize their morning every day, right? They're starting off with a good mindset. All right, so reading. Again, I'm going to do this one quickly because, like I said, I'm not an expert, but obviously I would say first is they just got to know their ABCs, right? And then they have to do sight words, and then they have to start reading on their own, like level 1 books, level 2 books. Now, because I do have a son who's in 2nd grade currently, I know about a little of these things. But basically, what's the long-term goal? To love to read, right? We just want to develop a habit of loving to read. So they read for their entire life, right? So again, do we build in habits, daily habits, or, do we, once we think they've got it, do we just kind of say, okay, I assume they've got it, we're going to move on to something else, right? It's the daily habit that is so important. All right, with writing, okay, I'll use this. Obviously, I think handwriting is the first thing. They just got to learn how to trace their letters and write their letters. I think we would agree with that, I hope. And then, they have to, within this, they have to learn spelling, right? And that goes with sight words, but they also have to be able to spell it. Good handwriting. Now, here's the thing about this one. I truly believe that kids should be writing every day. And I mean, practicing their penmanship. This is just a personal preference. But with that said, it's like kids that maybe need that extra practice, and they could do that daily if you set aside that time. But then the kids that already have great handwriting, there's this thing called cursive, right? I know some teachers teach it, but some don't. But the point is, this particular area, I think, has lots of differentiation. We talk about that all the time, where students can keep working at their own pace, right? They keep practicing, but then when they've reached a level where they're consistent and they've got that habit, there's another area. I mean, cursive is beautiful. Let's be honest. People that can write in cursive, it's just so much more nice to see, especially if it's legible, right? And then again, the idea of the syntax, the actual like writing well, the periods, all this stuff. But we have to have a habit, a daily habit that addresses that. Journaling, for example, or, I don't know, I'm just using examples because you guys are the experts in this field. My point is, my area, I guess what I would say of expertise or experience is in the sequencing, the curriculum development. So I hope that makes sense. But basically, what's our end goal in elementary school? To enjoy writing. Missed an I in there, didn't I? You know what I meant. There we go. Okay. All right. Math. Now, I'm actually not going to fill this one in because theoretically I kind of went over that here, right? But, same idea. I bet you could do something with math here. Okay. With science, I mean, it's the idea too of just start with, like, I'll just put it this way. Just start with a daily science video, right? Something to just get their mind thinking. It's literally the daily process. Like I said, I'm not trying to tell anyone how to do, and I don't even know if science is really taught that much in elementary school, okay? But I'm just trying to give ideas. But really, if you think about it, what is our ultimate goal across the board? It's to enjoy math, to enjoy science, okay? So the idea, again, I hope that you've taken this is making sense to you. But again, I'm going to say it one more time. Everything in my philosophical approach to this, why I made this channel, is habit routine based, right? And then I know that social skills or social emotional growth or whatever, I call it personal growth. I prefer that over social, and maybe I'll make a video on that too. Again, I have thoughts on everything. The point though is, what would be our goal here, right? To be lifelong learners. Did I spell it right? Probably not. All right. But the idea is, okay, so personal growth habits, all right? And this kind of goes back to the theme of this whole channel and why I decided to do that is, in the last 2 years, I've been exposed more and more in depth to what we call success principles. And success principles, if you have the habits of the mindset of personal growth, the idea that effort is important, the idea of the daily habits compound over time, the idea that we are the sum total of our habits, right? That we have to find our strengths, that if we want to achieve something, consistent effort. I already said that one, but all I'm trying to get at is, when I look back at my schooling, I was really good at this stuff in terms of the subject. But now that I have the wisdom of being older and I get to look back, I wonder, I just always wonder, despite that in a lot of ways I'm successful, I could be defined as successful in different ways, but what would have happened if I was introduced to some of the concepts I'm learning now much earlier? And so again, when I think about all of this stuff that I just want so deeply for the education system to be a benefit to all students, I just do. I see, again, a big picture whole that we do not focus on habits and success principles. And so anyway, I hope this is making sense. But anyway, with all that being said, I guess I'll just kind of conclude with this. The way we lay out our curriculum, right? The sequencing of things, I think is so important. And what's interesting to me through my process personally is I have seen how the process of music, and I mean learning an instrument, the process of learning to practice, the process of developing that skill set, I believe is transferable to every area of your life. And it doesn't even have to be in school. It could be just, if you want to maintain better relationships, you need to figure out the system. If you want to, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of random things, but well, I mean, sports. I mean, any person that is pursuing a sports or a career in some performing arts, let's say art, whatever, there's a process, there's a habit, there's a system that they must develop within themselves. And I've heard it said that you do not rise to an occasion, you fall to the level of your systems, right? And so again, I'll end with this. If there is even a hint of truth in that statement, in that saying, then we need to improve our education system, right? And that is the whole point of this. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and don't forget that consistent effort over time equals